in the morning, went into Good Morning Britain at 3 in the morning, and I had a raging temperature. I felt dizzy. I felt sick. It was clear to the producers there that they couldn't broadcast. I was rushed to hospital, and they treated me for suspected meningitis. Thankfully, it wasn't. It was just a virus. Well, now we're dealing with another virus, and a virus that is a huge threat to our country. And we can
Change it
keep
over,
above
Luke.
it. We can socially isolate. We can work from home where we can. We can make sure we keep away for those that we love that are vulnerable. And we could also thank the people that are on the front line fighting for us, the NHS staff, the men and the women, from porters to surgeons to everybody involved. I'd also like to clap the pharmacists too, and the people who are on the reception who are trying to deal with the situation. But we can come together and we can applaud at 8 o'clock, throw open our windows, however isolated we are, and unite to thank the NHS staff.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you all took part in the round of applause. Been a funny one again this evening. The world has gone obviously copiously mad. It's nothing that we can do about that in any way, shape, or form. Sadly, it is the way of the world at the moment.
Join with us and the whole nation.
Somebody's still talking in the background. Anyway, yeah, the world's gone completely mad, as we know. It's nothing that we can do. All we can do is stay in. We can look after ourselves. We can look after our friends and family. This is the coronavirus is taking over, not just the UK, but it's taken over the world. And that round of applause, which I've got the window open in my office. The round of applause was to all the NHS workers throughout the UK. In fact, all the workers throughout the world, medical workers, and somebody who's getting very undervalued, or a section of people who are getting very underappreciated by a lot of areas, is that of the care industry also. You know, you've got a lot of people, nurses and care people who work in nursing homes and places like that throughout the country. So this is also to them on my behalf, a round of applause to each and every one of you. Now, unfortunately, tonight we were obviously hoping to run the podcast at the same time. I've done a brief introduction on the podcast. Unfortunately, we're unable to run the podcast tonight. We had everything. I got it all up and running. I've spent the entire week trying to sort out what the issues were. It seems to be a Skype issue. It was the reason that we weren't able to broadcast Gary Cook last week. And sadly, this week, the amount of people on the internet throughout the United Kingdom has taken over the internet as well. So sadly, we had to drop one stream to concentrate on the other. And due to the TV show being so popular at the moment, we thought, hey, let's look at Mr. Julian Evan-Hart's face shortly. And instead of listening to him, we could do both. So that's why we're here tonight. We're clapping our hands. We've got Julian as a guest, and that's why the podcast has unfortunately been cancelled. Now, I've got a couple of things to go through. First and foremost, thanks to Scotty B, Kev Marchese, and Ray Warren Child for sharing this about on social media tonight. Luke and I are having massive internet issues, so we've asked them to help us out tonight. There's been multiple statements out this week from British Archaeology, Portable Antiquity Scheme, the National Council for Metal Detecting, and ourselves, amongst others. Obviously, there's been many other people have made statements in relation to everything that's going on in our community. So first and foremost, I'd just like to say, be sensible. You know what the rules are. You know what? Well, we know what the rules are. We can do our best to do what we want to do, and we hope it's classed in police circumstances as something that we can get away with. One thing I've been asked to raise: a farmer rang somebody in the NCMD and asked if they were concerned about the virus and what was happening. He pointed them to the website news, and he went on to tell him that he has several farms and over 1,000 acres and always been open to detecting, but said that if people during this lockdown don't stop knocking on his door asking to detect, he would stop all detecting even when the virus is gone. We did say, not me, they did say to put a gate warning up on the land to tell them that. But this gentleman also writes for the National Farmers Union magazine and sits on a farmers committee and he would make it known, in his words, that detectorists are going against the government lockdown. So obviously we don't know if that's 100% or not, but if it is, we don't want to make them sort of enemies, really, because, the more the NFU hear bad things, bad tidings, then word might get out and it might not do us good stead. So I hope everybody's taking the advice of the government at this time frame and doing what I do and sitting around the house going spare. I'm glad to do this tonight. I really am. Just going to have a drink, so I'm going dry. I did try yesterday. We've got a number of audio books, historical audio books. We've got access to them. And yesterday I released one as a podcast. So basically I've done an introduction. We played the audio book and then released it on air. Sadly, I was still having issues with the Spreaker platform, and it came out in complete gobbledygook. So I know what the issues are now and be able to get that back on board. So hopefully in the coming weeks, while you're all bored at home, we've got a number of interesting audiobooks for you to listen to via the Big Metal Detecting radio show page. Now, yesterday's one was actually called Historica Britannia, the history of Britain, by a 9th century Welsh monk called Nennius. And Nennius, many people suggest, is the person who his writings were what King Arthur was based on. We all know Geoffrey of Monmouthshire. Well, this was another Welsh monk, so it was a good listen, to be honest. I learned a lot from it, and sadly it all went Pete Tong, so there you go. Anyway, enough about what I've been doing and enough about what we've been doing, and more of our guest tonight, Mr. Julian Evan-Hart. How are you, Julian?
Yeah, not so bad, sir, not so bad. I would just like to say at this stage, just to reiterate all the things that you said earlier on the intro, Dave, particularly with regard to putting the hobby in a bad light. Ladies and gents, let's just be sensible about this. I, like you, have never lived through anything like this. There's a lot of self-proclaimed experts on Facebook. The thing is, just go with the government instructions, the NCMD instructions, and we will get through this. We will certainly get through this. It's going to take a bit of time, I do suspect. But please, ladies and gents, all things aside, let's just focus on getting through this. Don't rush the issue. It'll happen.
Let's hope so. It is unprecedented. I've heard that said multiple times. Social distancing, etc., etc. I took the dogs out for a walk today. We've got some old railway lines seconds from my house. So we went for a walk along the railway lines with the dogs. I've never seen them so busy in my life. You couldn't social distance because the amount of people that were there. Madness.
Yes, when you have experiences like that, it just almost throws into context and the visual appreciation of just how confusing some things can be, and you can't always apply some of these things. But each and every one of us, we've just got to make the very best we can out of this one. We have indeed, and it's also peculiar for me the amount of people who don't know anybody that the coronavirus has affected, and it's come up and bit me on the bum this week. I've got a family member who's got the coronavirus, and they're suffering not brilliantly at the moment. So hopefully, fingers crossed for them. Yeah, absolutely, Dave. Absolutely.
I'm not allowed to tell anyone who he is because I've been told not to. But yes, I've got a family member who's not doing great. So fingers crossed. And that straight away said to me, This is real. This is actual. This is happening. We see it on the news. We hear it on the news. But it takes something like that to kick you in the bollocks and tell you, hey, this is something that's not great. And that, I even walked past a field coming back, a field behind my house, and I thought, oh, yeah, go on there. I can't do it. That's me personally.
It's a good attitude to take there, Dave. I think it is. The temptation's there, of course it is, but we just can't buckle with this one. This thing, it's not messing about. Initially, when the first couple of days, myself included, you look at this situation and you think, it's just like the winter flus that we get, and gradually and slowly you realise that it is equivalent in its context to the 1666, plague. And this is a plague. Make no mistake about it. Although it's viral, it's nothing in any comparisons to flu. Frightening, scary times. Not going to deny that in any aspect. And with my health issues, I'm stuck in the living room now for another 11 and a half weeks. But, as I say, you just got to smile. Thank God for social media and all the people out there who communicate with me and everybody else. And on that focus, I don't think social media has or will, after this is finished, have ever been so important in our lives for keeping friendships alive, communication alive. People are going to feel dreadfully isolated, and this carries along mental health issues that can be stimulated from this. Hopefully, social media and people making comments on there, we can pick up some of the slack in that. Particularly within the hobby, I've noticed a lot of groups now are saying, if you know anybody in the group, oh boy, who's not doing so well or needs some shopping done. And how great is that? I think one can summarize by saying, that's the blitz attitude coming back. The sky is no longer, after 80 years, full of Dorniers, Heinkels and Messerschmitts. It's full of something far, far more deadly. It's an airborne virus, a Luftwaffe almost of viruses, one might say. But no, remarkable what I've seen on social media, the bonding together, little bit of niggly griping. You're going to get that. People are scared. But as a whole, incredible times to witness these things. Incredible times.
It is, and it's life-changing in a lot of ways for a lot of people as well. I'm sure a lot of people will learn a lot more about themselves over the coming 12-week period. Personally, we had an email from the company I work for to tell us we won't be going back until April. And it's the longest time I had off work, Julian, as you know. To help my mental state at that time, I had a long period of time with depression and such like. To help myself, I launched the Archaeology and Metal Detecting magazine. And it's that helped me bring me out. And a lot of people, one person who's just messaging me here, Andy Jones, who says his bans are longer than you because he's been banned for about a month and he's still got 8 days to go. And hello to everybody in the Metal Detecting and Beyond group. But Andy, at the very, very start, helped me out with the launch of the magazine, giving me some pointers here and there, what have you. And I've seen myself go downhill, but I've now got something to concentrate on, being the magazine, being the ArchMD Mag YouTube channel, the website, the updates every day, and the same with you. I'm sure I know you'll get far more people sending fines to you to
I mean, in my job, I carry a thing, the way I look at it, sort of a great honour and a great privilege to not only see what British and European metal detectorists find, but many of these people who submitted for the magazine over the years have now become good friends. Like yourself, we meet through the hobby. Now I regard you, you're a buddy, you're a dude I could phone up if I felt a bit crap, for whatever better word, on a Friday night and think, you know what, yeah, he'll understand. He's compassionate and sympathetic. And that is a great privilege to see that, because people allow me, through their letters, through their emails, through various other forms, to get inside their life. And sometimes they share the most in-depth things that, I've never met these people before. But since I've had the job 4 years now, I've become increasingly aware on how beneficial getting out, metal detecting, research, buying the books, everything, getting really into the hobby. I've had letters from soldiers who've lost limbs, people who had horrendous things happen to them in their lives, alcoholism recovery, drug abuse, everything. But they're all, it's a melting pot of a hobby, much the same, one might say, as other hobbies. But I've seen things in metal detecting and from people who participate that probably a lot of people haven't seen, apart from the people themselves. And, this hobby, although I'm bound to be biased on it and I sing its praises, but I had no idea how therapeutically beneficial to a huge variety of people in our society this hobby is. And that's one of the reasons when I do come across sometimes some of the ignorant criticism of people who clearly don't even understand or appreciate that angle. It's not a load of nerds wandering out in the fields recovering. I could go on for hours singing the praises of this hobby in respect of what people have shared with me. And I hark back, not for 1 second now did I ever envisage that my job would entail the privilege and honour of getting inside people's lives. And people now phone up quite late hours of the day, discuss matters, and it's never a problem, because 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock or whatever to me might not be 11 or 12 o'clock to somebody with severe problems. And that's, I think it's a lovely thing to be able to talk to people like that. It goes beyond metal detecting sometimes. And in my current role in the UK, I embrace that. I'm quite adequately capable of coping with that. And, guys, keep it up, because in that capacity, always here for a natter. And that's something on social media I've been trying to emphasise, particularly this week. If anyone does want a natter, my mobile phone number and my email number is widely available. So for those of you who haven't nattered or spoken or whatever, the offer is most certainly there, particularly in this time of real stress. That almost goes without saying.
And I can say that for myself as well. I've got weeks off. I can do the schooling for only so much. I can't play netball at PE, but I can have a go. But the phone's there for anyone who just want to chat. I know there's basically, I've been having so many messenger messages with the same video repetitively. I've had to turn my messenger notifications off. So if I don't get back to people, that's why. I only look occasionally. I'm sure you're the same, Jules.
Yeah, I must, I do ask for a bit of forgiveness if sometimes you just get the thumbs up emoji. Sometimes I get up in the morning and I turn on the Facebook and it goes like friend requests 2, messages 6, 16, 21, 42. And I'm thinking, and I look at them, and in the present climate, fortunately, some are videos and repetitive things. One person normally gets the answer and the rest of guys get the thumbs up. So, yes, I apologise for that. It's just an absolute necessity at the moment.
Do you know, Jules, of all the people I've got on Facebook, I look forward to your Facebook information more than anybody. I don't think Facebook think the same. I've been banned 15 times in the last 12 months for a wide variety of Facebook sins. Slightly off record at the moment, when it was quite witty to post up pictures of toilet rolls and bacterial hand sprays. Well, we've got one in the kitchen, and well behind everybody else as I can be on Facebook, I posted it up and said £10 a squirt, 50 quid for the whole thing. Next day, found out I was banned because it contravened the Facebook Firearms Act. And, we're talking about a soap dispenser here. I don't know what magazine or how many rounds per minute that fires, but, so fine Facebook, I went with the flow there. It wasn't worth getting all het up about. I found it funny, as a matter of fact. In fact, I made 2 Facebook posts out of being banned because I got a 24-hour ban or something. But, I think I'm moderately well known for some of my rather hot-headed opinions sometimes. And some of those will obviously be directed to the occasional and, ignorant armchair general person who has a go at our hobby. That's not happening on my watch, pal. And I know that attitude is shared by a lot of other people. So, he's had those a couple of times as well.
Oh yeah, so that's excellent. At the end of the day, we're all brothers and sisters, bound by the quest for collecting and seeing and witnessing the discovery of ancient things. And that doesn't just benefit us. The ramifications of metal detecting are colossal. The amount of books that have been written in 50 years, the amount of magazine articles, the amount of BBC interviews, TV programs, new books that have had to be added to or totally rewritten that we have done. There is nobody in Britain that carries the torch that far. Yes, there are the academic researchers who really go into mint marks and alloy compositions. Of course, credit given where credit's due. But as a general basis for the contribution to cultural history in this country, this hobby, there are no parameters and there are no equals. We're all a blend. We work well with academics. Mostly, I would say, but in the bigger picture of things, what we achieve by treading out in the fields in all weathers, absolutely astounding.
And one thing that you didn't add there, Julian, was the amount of archaeological information that has actually been sourced from metal detecting.
Absolutely, yes,
absolutely. Sites that have been discovered, the amount of archaeologists who have utilised metal detectorists for field surveys that they've come up and added to information for the sites. You just have to look at finds.org to realise the amount of information that we've gained.
I mean, it's a great thing, although we are, and I make no bones of this, we are the cultural preservers, recoverers, whatever you wish to say, of history. But it's a good two-way thing because many of us don't have the time to do the in-depth research which academic archaeology can do. They're the ones who'll turn around to you and say, whoa, Dave, the Stephen Penny you found, there was one found up in Northumberland, two from Essex, and they were both all struck at the same mint, but the money is of it. That type of research takes a long time to do. And there, so the feedback comes from, but it's us in the first place supplying the food to feed that academic angle. Again, a great thing and should be far, far more widely recognised, I do believe. So if Your Majesty's looking in times of things like this, I reckon there's a few people out in this hobby, a couple of OBEs or MBEs wouldn't go missing. I must say.
Certainly concur with that.
And one name springs to mind on that one is a guy who wrote for the magazine for 30 years, Roman Ron. An unbeatable wealth of knowledge, all derived from metal detecting, and his contributions to academics, the magazine, museums. There's people like that, I think, in the line for an OBE. Why not? It's almost, in my opinion, overdue. There's a great thanks to be paid there. I mean, he's been in archaeology and metal detecting now for the sum total of 55 years. Now, he didn't do it for any recognition, and that's the great thing. But I think we should give it to him and many others like him.
Indeed. Now, one of the questions that's just popped up at the bottom of the screen, I mean, I've got a list of questions to go through, which I probably won't because we won't need to. But just in case they're there, one of the questions we just had is tell us the story about how you've ended up as the Treasure Hunting magazine editor.
Right. Well, from grassroots, I've always been a keen detectorist since the mid-70s. And I must give credit where credit's due. 23 years ago, I was in W.H. Smith's and I saw a bloke and there was picking up a copy of Treasure Hunting magazine. There was the only one left. Anyway, he started reading it. And I thought, I said, "You going to buy that, mate, or not?" And he looked at me as if slightly in disdain. And he said, he said, "There's only one left. Do you do this?" I think we got talking. It was, of course, Dave Stuckey, who's turned into a lifelong good mate, although we take the rib out of each other all the time. And he turned around and he said, "Oh, I'll write for the mag." And I thought, write for a magazine? Never even considered doing such a thing. And I thought, well, if he can, I can. Put my first submission in, didn't hear anything for about 3 months. Then a brown paper envelope came through the door one Saturday morning. I picked it up and there was a copy of Treasure Hunting in it. And my first thought was, nice, but why has somebody know I'm a detectorist? Who sent me this? Anyway, I looked inside. There was my first ever published article, and I think, if I remember rightly, even a small tear might have crept into my eye. First time I'd ever been published. And I think 600 magazine articles later, I had a phone call from Dan, and he said, "Are you free at lunchtime?" This was about 4 years ago. I said, "Yeah, certainly." Anyway, cut a long story short, he offered me the job, and I was just absolutely gobsmacked. I thought to myself, as I often do, I'm quite interested in time and standing in places, and I thought, when I put pen to paper, and it really was with solid photographs in those days, there were no digital cameras. You had to take your photos, pay your 12 quid in Boots, check them out. They were all rubbish. Get the bus home, take them again, go back down to Boots. And it was really like that. And I thought to myself, I've come all the way from that. And now I is the editor. And I thought, it's in 4 years now, it's a fantastic honour. It's sometimes, I'm quite gobby most of the time. And when I think about it and I put it in context, it's difficult for me to describe the sort of the thanks that I owe to Dan, my boss. One gets slightly emotional. I think it's like when when I think back to last year, what happened, and you think, in the context of present times now, and I'm not going to go into a lecture on this one, but you don't realise how brittle your life is until, bang, my life changed within 42 minutes of walking around a medieval castle to lying in A&E, and then, technically my heart stopped for 18 minutes. And, it's things like this. That was now 10 months ago, and amazing. To think that now everybody I know is under that same type of pressure. So, and again, I make no apologies for showing the emotion there. Love the magazine, love the hobby, absolutely fantastic. The magazine, I think, altered my life when I suddenly became in charge of processing everybody else's work from all over the UK. That in itself, again, I say, an amazing honour to be able to do that. And I can honestly say, that 99.999%, I think, of all the work that's been submitted in the last 4 years, we've published, because we maintain that sort of thing. Nobody's standard of English is all the same. My spelling is absolutely atrocious like that. But with modern day technology, we can put everything right. And I hold the epithet up as editor. If you can take half hour or an hour to put something down and write to me, then I can damn well take the time to get it published for you. And that's the sort of spirit of the magazine, really. But so that's it, really. That's, how I met sort of Dave Stuckey. And I owe Dave as well, really, for pompously telling me that he wrote for the magazine. And of course, I saw red to that, thinking, well, I can bloody do that too. But no, great times, absolutely great times, and hopefully, all being well with everything, it's a job I shall hold for another decade or so.
We certainly hope so, definitely. Can I just point out as well that I've got exactly the same bookcase as you? I was looking at it then, looking at your books.
Have you? I can't remember where. Yes, it's yes. That's there's another one of those.
Is there? Yeah, I've got about 1, 2, 3, 4 and a load of shelves. So, what got you into metal detecting originally, Jules?
Well, I must have been early 70s with my mum to see one of her friends, and this lady came out and she said, and she was like as nutty as a fruitcake. And she came out and she said, I have this new electronic thing for finding metal. And she brought it out and it looked like the old sticker rock handle, with the control box that took about 97 PP3s and, needed a small army of people to carry it. And she said, you can borrow that if you want to. Anyway, I did, found absolutely nothing. But the context was there. And about a year later, I saw a bloke out in the field with a metal detector, and I thought, I was probably, 9. And so it was a case of I was out with my mates, there were 5 of us. Oh, you go over and talk to him. No, you go and ask him if he's found anything. Anyway, I was the annoying little git, who went over and said, all right, mister. No, mister. And he had to take his headphones off and all this tackle off. I said, sort of brusquely, yes, what do you want? And I said, have you found anything? The interesting thing was, I can remember he showed me, and he had like a a small half handful of gold coins. I have no idea what they were.
Wow.
I went 30 years later into that field, having asked permission from the landowner, and found absolutely nothing. So I'm wondering whether he was just a hopeful hoax of the early 70s or something like that. I shall never know. But again, you know, he was one of those people in my life. I thought he was a trigger mechanism. And I thought when I could actually afford to buy a metal detector, I did. I bought one from a well-known shop called a Micronta. How that never actually put me off a hobby and killed it dead for me, I don't know. Because you had to force the control, the coil down onto the coin to get a target registration, which amazing times. But I was like cock and a rock with this damn thing. And eventually my second machine was an Arado 120B, the absolute cult machine of the 70s and early 80s. And an amazing times.
You've been going some time then?
Yeah, it's never really been on and off. I always went into it whole hog. And, I've always had a clear vision in my life of what I wanted to do. And that was write books, find Roman coins, find ancient things, dig up aircraft, and do that. And at this stage, I would probably apologise to my 3 previous wives, because my dedication to metal detecting has almost certainly resulted in the divorces of those marriages. But we all get on well. There was times I just had a clear vision. I just had to do these things. And I've helped and authored with, I think, 23 books now. And that's it. I'll probably write a few more here and there. But, it's one of those things. I knew I had to do it. And I had to do it at all costs. Strange philosophy on life? Yes, I won't deny. And, probably my kids think I'm a bit weird as well. But it's one of those things. They're all quite old now. Well, youngest is 15. So, but, looking back with hindsight, it's one of those things. But it's a great hobby. And I'm sure when I look back personally, it's helped me in times where the wheels have come off certain aspects of life. You think, I don't know, but you think there's a field a mile away full of Roman coins. Nothing exists apart from that field with you when you're in it with your detector. It's like some form of medication. Some might say it's an obsession, and they're probably right as well. But it's absolutely fantastic. Love it to bits, and I love anything associated with it, of course. But I say that's what makes my job, for me, the perfect job in Britain. I've had loads of jobs, and I've liked a couple of them before, but this one, never have I merged a passion with a career. That's
And how many other jobs do you actually get to go out and about and meet as many people as you do?
That's it for me, you see, because I'm quite a social geese. I do like going out and meet people. When I go to rallies, it's not unknown for me to spend half hour detecting, the 2 or 3 days of the rally, just chattering and having a couple of burgers and a few beers with lads. Because it's not, although my job, yes, basically is to fill the magazine. And if I was what I call a clinical editor, that would probably be my sole game. But I being a sociable person, and I'm quite a compassionate dude. People tend to sort of flow. Life experiences, finds, and that's a lovely thing. And it's a two-way process. So it's, at the moment, job-wise, all that side of things is working very, very well. And, I hope that people, when I took over the magazine, it wasn't busted, so I didn't need to mend it. But I knew specifically it had a certain flavour that I wanted to give that magazine. And I hope people have noticed, because it's their contributions and the way I've sort of styled certain things blended with their contributions that have made it what it is today. From all the way out in the field to the printer to the geezer that drops it through your letterbox, I look on it as one big team. And it's an amazing process, absolutely amazing process.
I've got another message off Andy Jones. Obviously, he can't participate. He said, ask Julian, would he like my Gloster Meteor for his collection?
Now, it was it Andrew? Was it? I believe was it
Andrew Jones? Yeah.
Andrew. Right. Now a Gloster Meteor that I dug up one of those once. In fact, no, two Gloster Meteors. If it's a model or a family heirloom, sir, even if you have no children or anyone in the family that's interested, my advice to you, and thank you, first of all, would be to keep it. If it's a life-size, the real thing, my present abode would have some structural dimensions that might curtail me owning such a thing. But, thank you, whatever context you meant that in, anything to do with aircraft, again, particularly in the 1930s to 45, Gloster Gladiators and everything like that. Beautiful aircraft. But I'll probably have to refuse you, sir, on that. But thank you nonetheless.
Do you know, I've got a fantastic book that you may have come across. It's called White Peak Air Crash Sites.
Yes, yeah.
Fantastic. And a lot of them, I bought it because obviously the White Peak is local to me in Congleton, but I didn't realise how many aircraft crashes are actually as close to me as there actually are. And if I can find it, the Mosquito.
Yeah, dug a few of those up.
Yeah. Well, I actually worked on one of them. I was apprentice at Airbus BAE
Systems. Oh, crikey.
So I actually worked on one of those as an apprentice, along with other aircraft. There was one it was a special aircraft which kept in a hangar away from everything else, and the apprentices occasionally got to go and dabble. So I've actually worked on that, and it was just mentioning the Gloster Meteor. Then I've plucked this book off the shelf. Anyone local? Sorry about the green screen.
Very good.
Pat Cunningham, awesome author on aircrafts, and the images in here are absolutely phenomenal. Some brilliant.
I love it when an author gets a bit between his teeth and really produces, the 1940s photographs and they go back and stand on the same view and say, you could say, I mean, I've got to say, and I'll show everyone later on. I helped with the producing of a book called The First Blitz in 100 Artifacts. Now, when one gets involved in these little ventures, you never quite know what the end product's going to be. I got my draft copy through from a gentleman the other day, and I can't believe this book. There's very few books you ever encounter in your life where somebody has grabbed something like a terrier and nobody will ever need to write a book again on that subject because he's done it. There's nothing else. He's gone to Scotland and photographed spang marks in brick walls where Zeppelin bombs went. He's gone to the families of the RE, the Royal Flying Corps people who shot them down, filmed their uniforms still hanging up in oaken cupboards. And I actually, 12 years ago now or something like that, I actually excavated a Zeppelin. And I found a fired British bullet inside that, in the wreckage, as far as the wreckage still remained in the field. Anyway, I gave this guy some photographs. I found 2 German Zeppelin crew buttons as well. And I gave this gentleman a photograph of these for the book. And he actually came back, and through his research, he actually was able to tell me who fired that actual bullet. Wow. Now, for me, it's because all the British pilots that went up that night wrote in a diary, accounts register, the type of ammunition they had loaded up into their planes. And this guy was the only one who had the type I found. And for me to contribute to that level of research, I'll grab the book off my bookshelf at most, only because we're doing this on the mobile phone. And it's not that I've got bad earwax. I've got one of those little buddy things in here and I have to keep doing it. But I will show people that book because this author deserves credit. It's a beautiful book, all bits of bombs, bits of artifacts, and it's a metal detecting dream, and it was lovely to be able to put some metal detecting finds right into the focus for the book for him. Absolutely brilliant.
When I was dabbling in archaeology in the early 2000s, I worked with a gentleman called Mark Ollie. We had him on the All Metal Mode UK show I think it was early last year we had him on there. And it was Mark who allowed me to come onto his site and be an archaeologist, basically. And we'd done a metal detecting survey, myself and a chap called Steve Parsons. A lot of his finds were actually in the Llangollen Museum in relation to Llanarmon Yal in North Wales. And there was, where the site ended, there was a fence and then the next farm. Excuse me. So we were invited to metal detect on the field adjacent, because obviously some of the finds might be in relation to the archaeology of this particular site. And we were told there was a tribute sign somewhere within this field to a crashed aircraft. And it was a Boeing B-29 Washington that went down in Llanarmon Yell in 1953. And obviously, we're going away, and being an aircraft fitter by trade, I knew what I was picking out the ground. And the amount of rivets that we were bringing up was unbelievable. Archaeological context, they wouldn't been able to do anything metal detecting wise because of the amount of debris from the air crash in the field. And my friend actually pulled up the communications board for the aircraft. So he took that home, and he's got it. Well, I don't know if he's still got it, but he had the radio thing for the aircraft, and that was quite amazing given the site and, you know, everything else that had gone on. And we looked into the history, and, you know, it was just a training exercise that went wrong.
Well, that's an amazing thing, because 35 years ago, I got permission to detect outside this wood near Royston, and a Washington had come down in that wood, 1953 again, I believe. And if I remember rightly, it's a bit out of my time zone. I think a Washington is a modified B-29, almost like a tank. Yeah, so anything beyond 1945 were no go for Jules. But and this guy said, "Well, you know, there's a few bits in the wood. You know, do you want to go and see if you can find any?" I went in there with no interest at all, really, but I thought I'd had a little pop around. And he came out next week in the Land Rover. And he said, "Did you find anything?" I said, "A few bits." And he said, "Well, I'll pick this up." And he had one of the complete, like, mid-upper gun turrets like that. And I mean, this thing was about 4.5 foot long dome of aluminium where the 250 caliber guns had gone. And I had that in the back garden for many years. Another excuse, you see, to get for somebody to divorce me. I'm sure that was. Sure, it was. Yes, every woman should have a Washington B-29 turret in the back garden.
Lisa, do you want one?
Huh?
Can we get Lisa one?
Well, we could arrange to get.
We've got propellers in the storeroom.
There are propellers in the storeroom. I've got a Dornier 217 propeller blade in there, Junkers 88, and large sections of which is quite cool. I've got a B17 in there, spent a long time looking for it, and then ended up getting an invite on this field with a mate of mine who said, "Oh, don't go over in the corner detecting, Jules, B17 over there." And I thought, "Oh, well, I'm going to have a little look at that." But I was really after Saxon skeets that day. It was a good skeety site. And anyway, I went into the field and found a few 50 caliber bullets, and they were dated 1940. And I thought, well, that's far too early for the general American, you know, coming over here, 42, 43. And it was one of the first lease-lend B-17s, and they were pretty poor. Engines were very bad. They weren't good with European moisture levels. And this one stalled about 5,000 feet, lost a wing. I've been looking for this damn thing for ages, found it purely by accident. Then I found out on the internet there was a 2-hour propaganda film made with this particular aircraft, and I'd found bits. She'd come down in a river. There was quite some substantial bits lying around the trees. And then a week later, I watched the film in its entirety, and it had, I never remember his name, I think it was Robert Greene or something, who played Robin Hood in the 1950s British films. Something Green, maybe Robert Greene, Rodney Greene. Anyway, in the film, he gets underneath the aircraft and he swings off this, like, what looks like a pear-shaped door handle, which is how the crew got in underneath. Anyway, about 9 days after watching that film, I found that exact handle in the field. Wow. That's one of my greatest finds, that is. Going back a long time, but to say, you know, every time you watch the film, I can see, I can get that handle out, and I've got the actual handle in the film. But it's just one of those addictive things about detecting.
Now, a couple more questions I've got through my phone, Jules. The first one, what books have you written? and I presume they could be bought on greenlightpublishing.com.
Well, now let me think. No, yeah, then I've done 22 books I've contributed or written to. Some are Greenlight, yeah. The Beginner's Guide to Metal Detecting. I did the illustrations for the Advanced Guide. And then there's Red Kite Publishing, who I produced War-Torn Skies, Hertfordshire and Cambridgeshire, and helped with Bedfordshire and Essex. The best thing to do is, and it sounds so big-headed, I always hate saying this, is Google my name and it will come up on the Amazon listings and you can have a look. I've done books with a lot of authors who are writing a book will employ me to write a chapter on a specific subject for them. So I might do a Sterling bomber shot down in Holland that I'll help recover or something like that. But there is that, I think the first Blitz and 100 Artifacts is the 23rd book that I've either written or heavily contributed to.
Where did your passion for World War II come from?
Don't know really. I think any small child, I was born in the early 60s, and by the late 60s, 70s, Airfix models were the be all and end all. I knew more about Humbrol paint schemes and colours and how to make an Airfix model kit, and then I would only make Second World War kits. I wasn't interested in jets or anything like that, and then I used to go around crash sites, and I never thought in the early days you could do it then without a license or anything. I used to look around, find a few bits of metal on the floor, and look, if only I'd listened better in physics. Obviously something hitting the ground at 400 miles an hour, weighing 30 tons, some of that just might go down deeper than 2 inches. And I never thought about that at the time. And then 20 years later, I was hiring Hymac diggers to dig down 40 feet to get a Daimler-Benz 601 engine out. So it was a natural process of things. I've always loved aircraft. If I hear a Spitfire or a Hurricane flying across the back now, it sends a shiver up my neck. So I don't know, maybe I come from a different time schedule. Maybe there's something quite eerie going on here. Who knows? But in August particularly, I look up in the skies and I think I cover a lot of Battle of Britain stuff. And, it's not that difficult to let your mind wander, and you can hear the Merlins and the Daimler-Benzes struggling up. I'm going to stop now because people will think I'm totally insane. But,
one of my greatest memories of growing up, Jules, has got to be the TV adaptation of The Machine Gunners. Absolutely loved it. Absolutely. I'm going to watch that tomorrow on YouTube or something.
Oh, do you know what? Yeah, fantastic. It just captures the essence of, and thank God for those kids during the war as well, because although there was a 10 shilling fine for looting, but thank God they looted, because I found over the last 40 years of research that many of these old boys now are in their 80s and 90s. When I got older, they were in their 60s and things, and there was, I remember talking to one old boy, 6 months. I used to go around and I was writing a book and transcribing his stuff. And he looked at me and he said, I've got something you can have a look at about the air crash. And I said, and I thought, this is going to be good. I said, what you got then? And he goes, well, you won't tell anyone, will you? And I said, but Home Guard have been gone 45 years, guys. You get no worries like that. And he had some quite unsavoury bits from this German air crash, covered in blood and bits. But he had medals, Narvik shield, Iron Cross, and a bit of tunic. And as an 8-year-old kid, he'd gone across the field and just taken all these off what was left of one of the bodies. Never told his dad, nothing like that. But wow. And gory times. I mean, children then, at 7 or 8 years old, to see something like that. Gee, gosh almighty. But that's why in my books, when I do the research and they tell me about the gore and the stuff that they saw, I never cut it out. Because if you sterilise history, you're going down a wrong path on that one. Even my mum says, oh, Jules, did you really have to put that in there? And I did, because that little boy saw it and it's indelibly stamped on his mind, and he will die with that memory. Even when I interviewed an old village policeman from 1940, and he was an old boy then, he told me this time when a German came down over the back and smashed the crew to pieces, and he collected them up in a Hessian sack. Didn't tell his missus, put them out in the back garden, and this was August. And he knew that he had like 2 weeks to report it to the coroners and get it all sorted out. Anyway, totally forgot about it. And she came in one day and she said, "Oh, I can't watch." She goes, "What's the matter with the back garden?" She goes, "It's full of flies." And he goes, "Have you done something out there? What's going on? Have you got your ferrets down there?" And he's going, "Bloody hell." He goes, "I hope she didn't go up the garden." He goes, "Because you could see her hand sticking out of this Hessian sack." And I thought, tragedy for the family that lost a young man, a brother, whatever his political view. But the humour of the old boy going up there with a Hessian sack with a human hand. And then he said, when I got down the coroners, he said, no bugger wanted to know me. He said, "But I stank like high heaven." He said, "And I just put these 2 Germans in a sack on the guy's desk." And I wrote all this down. You say, and the way I look at stuff like this, it's vital to talk and share. Share your experiences detecting now with your grandkids or anyone who will listen. Because that old boy, he shared his whole wartime life with me and then died. And another case, which I'd like to tell how important it is to share. I met, when I was doing the Cambridgeshire book, Aviation Crashes in Cambridgeshire, about 15 years ago, I met this old boy. He was a vicar, and he was well approaching the hundreds, or maybe some 90s. And anyway, he told me everything from being a young lad in the postal service in 1937, all the way through the war, every German he saw get shot down, everything he saw like this. And then, bless him, he popped his clogs and he'd gone. And I did a talk in Cambridgeshire about 6 years ago, and this little old lady came up to me, and she must have been well into her 90s, and she turned around and she said to me, "Thank you for keeping him alive, because nobody in our family was really that interested." She said, "Me included. We never asked him about the war, and we never knew. And you've got this whole." I dedicated a whole chapter to the guy in the book. It was just perfect. I had him in his sort of like ARP hat and everything, and it was just mint, Home Guard stuff. And I interviewed him over the telephone, met him a couple of times, and then, bless him, he passed away, but captured him now, and his family now know exactly what he did from 1937 to 45 over about, I think it was about 18 pages like that. So, that's why I keep on saying on social media, it is so important to share your knowledge. If you found one of something somewhere and another thing, share it, because there's always somebody who's found something you've got or can go, "Oh, I've got one of those, mate, as well." And it is vital. Sharing is the critical element to metal detecting, And yeah, it's not just me saying that as a magazine editor, because you guys can share millions of stuff that you share too much that I could ever publish. So, it's not all one-sided, and it's not me looking desperately to fill the magazine up at all. It's just, for the benefit of the hobby, you must share. It's vital. Share stuff on social media with each other. And a lot of people do anyway. But, if it's something that I can encourage more people to do, it really is top of the benefits for our hobby.
And not only that, Jules, even people who are sharing things that they think is trash, or they are relative newcomers to the hobby, they're going to learn by sharing whatever Absolutely. It is. And the amount of things that people have shared that they think are trash, and it ends up being an Anglo-Saxon something or other.
Well, I mean, in the 70s when I first started, crotal bells were found, listed and sold as being Roman.
Put your phone up a bit, mate.
You've just got a talking double chin there, haven't you?
Now we got talking boobs.
How dare you, sir? How dare you? Brilliant. But so it's a learning curve. It doesn't matter in this hobby whether you've been doing it a week or 50 years. There's a level of experience, yes, but nobody is a better metal detectorist than anybody else. It's you've got to put your coil over it to find it. And what you do with the hobby thereafter is entirely up to you. But I would say, get stuff published if you can. Write your own books. Start your own magazine. Do something like that. But don't collect drawers and drawers and drawers of items that just remain there. As a friend of mine said the other day, he said, when you do stuff like that, he said, you may as well leave it in the field, because it hasn't helped the history, the picture of our culture in Britain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I keep getting nudged in the knee to show you just some of my collection, which I will do in a few minutes.
Gary Cook says to say hello, and he will give you a call tomorrow.
Gary, thank you ever so much, mate, and I appreciate everything that you've done for me, the hobby, and the magazine. Wonderful fellow.
I have got one question, a personal question I'd like to ask you. What inspires you, Jules?
What inspires me? Lots of things. I think the metal detecting has put me in situations, in some cases, that normal people don't experience unless you're a metal detectorist. I'll tell you about an incident that happened, and bless her now, young lady, well, she was young, she was only 70 odd. She passed away now. I found, a couple of years back, an American serviceman lieutenant's cap badge in a wood where a B-17 had crashed. I had a license, I will add, from Minister of Defence to search the crash site. And then I got this letter from, or it might have been an email, no, I can't remember, from this 11-year-old American girl saying, I think you know something about my granddad, and my nan is a bit weary about talking about it. So I said, well, what's your granddad's name? As soon as she said it, I knew it was one of the crew members on this B-17. Anyway, end result was that Mary, who was the daughter of the waist gunner on this particular B-17, she flew over to England to meet me. She only ever got a telegram from her dad, from the War Office, saying her dad had died in the European theatre of war. Had no idea where he'd been killed. I remember walking into the wood with her a couple of years back, and she said, can you take me to exactly where my dad was killed? And I said, well, normally no. I said, but in this case, I can. I said, because I've got wartime photographs. They show me where the fuselage landed. Bless her. And she turned around to me, and this was a time as a detectorist that was a hard time, because I had to be rawly honest with this lady. And she looked at me before we got into the wood, and she said, Jules, she said, did my dad suffer? And I thought, oh. I looked at her and I said, and I got all the crash reports, I knew all the details, had all the eyewitness accounts, had all the statements from other members in the formation. And there was no other answer but yes. He wasn't killed in the initial. The plane broke up in the air. Bless him, he was 27 years old. He was trapped in that fuselage for 5 minutes, falling to earth. So I told her this, and she didn't bat an eyelid. And I walked her into the wood, and she said, but you said you could tell me exactly where my father was killed. And I said, well, within reason, I said, I can. I said, nature and things might have differed in the last 60 years. I said, and so I took her to this spot. There's a bomb hole where one of the bombs blew up in the fuselage, which probably resulted in killing her father. And she said, well, how can you be so sure? And I said, well, if you plot where the bomb was in the bomb bay, it burst here, and your dad would have been exactly here in the fuselage with the waist gun, assuming he hadn't moved around. And I said, but I do know pretty much a little bit more about the situation. I said, because I've got your father's cat badge. And, that was amazing. And that's one of those things only metal detecting could ever have allowed me. And anyway, there was a little bit of a story carry on to this one, because that 11-year-old girl eventually went on to join the American Air Force as in the parachute reserve. I'm not quite sure what it's called. And 2 people had to write a letter to recommend her. One of them was an American senator, and the other one was me. And I sort of think, I've been researching that crash since 1977. And I thought eventually the denouement of all that research was that I had to write a recommendation for that man's aircraft who I'd researched and found bits of, and who died in 1944. I had to write a recommendation for his daughter to take over the same role he did. Wow. I've just, still, speechless again. And the hobby, it's not the first time the hobby has put me in that very privileged situation. I've returned personal items to quite a few families in America, a couple of families in Germany, and things like that. And from that point of view, it puts the hobby into a more modern rawness, because when you find a Roman brooch, the bloke may have written his name on it, he'd scratched his name, and it makes it that bit personal. But you read things in the mag and see it on Facebook. A farmer said to me, I lost my wedding ring in 1955 and I found it yesterday. Tell me more beauty that you could ever get in a hobby, because I can't think of it.
That's the story about the airman. It was an absolute, you hear a lot of stories, but that was fantastic, especially the end product with his granddaughter.
Yeah,
and you return the cat badge to the family.
Yeah, to do that, I've been involved in quite a few things where we've sent personal items back. Unfortunately, sometimes you can work out personal possession by what the items are. I did a Junkers 88 many years ago and found a navigator's dividers. So it could only belong to the navigator, and I knew who the navigator was. But unfortunately, his family had all died out in 1945. So I've still got them today, and they form one of the prides of place in my collection. It's just there's nobody who's related to that young man to look after them, so I'll do it. Just amazing.
With your finds and what have you, Jules, do you have them obviously in storage, or do you have them like on show in like a showcase or something like that?
Yeah, you can have a look at some of mine. This is a small selection I brought out of my collection. Yeah, might be able to see that. That's a lovely little Roman pot that I found with Dave Stuckey about 2 years ago. Trays of hammers, buckles. I keep my modern curios, silver coins, medals, and the odd thing I do have a First World War medal somewhere. That was another sad story. Yeah, that's a British Empire medal. I don't know if you can see it going in there. In there. And it's got the bloke's name on it, but again, another family. Oh, no, that's me. No worries. There, just there. But another case. The family emigrated to America. They're all dead. I've been trying to relocate that, but can't. Loads of curious things. My favourite pipe tamper of all, which is King George III. Can we see that? No.
All the way. No, where's he gone now? Looks like you're trying to put it somewhere.
Yeah, that was a bit of an unfortunate one. Yeah, it's King George in quite an excited state, as you can see. Apparently unique, the only one known in Britain. So it must have been a one-off. We've got, there's loads of things. I'll keep my Georgian coins. Yeah, we're not doing really well with this, babe. So it's never mind. I will say one thing I am doing. I am going to put my entire collection onto Facebook over the next month or two. Just, to hopefully share it. Well, it's all been shared before, but I've never put it on Facebook condensed. So the whole collection is going up, the propeller blades, the whole damn lot is going up on Facebook. So people can, hopefully it'll encourage more people. Well, people are sharing already. I've seen some fabulous competitions already today. But that's my sort of contribution to keeping people occupied, smiling for the next 12 weeks. So that will certainly be going up.
My contributions is probably not doing the show, but I'll do it anyway.
You've got to do this thing, mate. This is what I say. YouTubers, people who write articles, people who collect stuff, people who share stuff, yourself. The amount of dedication that, you and Luke have shown, and you guys, I met you through the hobby, both of you brilliant mates now, and I would trust you implicitly. And that's a lovely thing to achieve in life, to meet people through your hobby, people who are genuine. You like them, you get on well, you can have a beer with them, you can have a crack. That's it. It's just a marvellous thing all round. But, we are looking at it, ladies and gents. we're a damn good bunch of people, I reckon, a damn good bunch. And it helps being such a good bunch in times like the present. Because as I said at the beginning, we are going to get through this. And it's a measure of calibre of people helping each other out. And the amount of stuff I see on social media of people offering help and that, it's the real Blitz spirit. And that's something amazing to witness.
And it makes me and Luke very proud, for something that we're just doing, like, oh, Luke, should we try this just to see if it works? Should we Mike's obviously gone, not been able to do it. Should we try doing the podcast instead of him? And people have agreed to come on. And that means so much to us that the likes of yourself do trust us enough to come on and chat to us.
As I've said, I take to people like a duck to water, and at my age, I pretty much know now who's a decent fellow, who's a bit of a shyster, and who isn't in the hobby, or anything like that in all walks of life. But you guys, you will always have my support. The service that you provide, the platform for sharing, I could never not support such a quality thing. You are fundamental to the hobby now, and in the next 12 weeks will really show the metal that you guys are made of and what you can produce. Now, brilliant stuff, guys, brilliant stuff.
We appreciate that. I'll speak on behalf of Luke as well. There's no higher appreciation than when something like that comes from yourself, Jules. Me personally, there's nobody else I've got more respect for in the hobby. There's a lot of people I respect, a lot of people I like, but you're right up there. Look at me being all nice. I've got going like that now.
You're emotional again, young man. You'll get me all emotional. But you know what? I'm not embarrassed to have shown emotion tonight, because that, in retrospect, I've always been quite emotional like that. When I find a Roman ring, I might dwell on it a little bit more than the average person. I might think about it, and then I put it on my finger and I think, God, and I know we all think, oh, who last wore this? But sometimes I'll try and make up a little story about it or come up with a couple of possibilities. And that's what I like, and also try and encourage, and a lot of people do, is when you make a find, as you get older, ponder it, work out all the possibilities, because when that dreaded Alzheimer's or whatever kicks in, things like that are keeping your brain stimulated and thinking, I'm pretty convinced can help defy some of those major aspects of Alzheimer's, or at least stall it for a long term. The more you can keep this up here fresh and curious and pondering and and talking about your passion, I think I think you're well on the way to sort of maintaining a good level of mental health.
Do you know, Jules, I'm just looking at some of the comments that people are saying how much they're looking forward to seeing your finds, and it makes me think maybe it'd be an idea to start up your own page, Jules Finds, and catalogue all the imagery on there, so it's all in one place for permanent fixture.
Well, what I'll probably do, because I'm a bit of a technophobe, as you well know, and if Lisa had helped me out tonight, we wouldn't be talking. I will probably publish them in bulk on the treasure hunting website, and then either share them to all the other groups like I normally do, or I might put them up on my homepage, but they will be, easily accessible. I mean, we are talking about
loads.
Thousands.
400 photographs, I would have thought. But, yeah, I mean, I'll do it, and I'll let people well know where it can be sourced to have a look. I mean, I will say almost everything has been in the pages of the magazine in the last 24 years, I think. But, there's young kids out there who won't have those editions, so they're going to come out again. But,
right.
I'm
just going to put my hand in me. Got to put my hand in my special drawer. This is me drawer of magazines. These are my dad's magazines. These were all sort. Right, first one I'm going to pick out. I don't know what it is. Treasure Hunting magazine, March 1983.
Wow.
It makes me think I might take some photographs of some of the articles, of some of the imagery, and do something not dissimilar myself. And I'd say that to other people as well. If you do have any old finds, any old magazines, or old finds for that matter, obviously we've got the big metal detecting radio and TV show Facebook group, and the Archaeology and Metal Detecting magazine group. If you put any of your finds or your imagery of old magazine articles, please feel free, because I'm sure, especially over the next 12 weeks, people are going to be definitely wanting to see this. Now, this one takes my breath away a little bit. In the 1950s, the Daily Mirror buried a load of metal tokens on the beach in Margate. And if you can see that, check them out.
Oh, gosh. Oh, marvellous.
And there's the article, Daily Mirror Treasure Hunt.
I love things like that, when you can put it into context.
They're all found.
Oh, yeah.
This is Treasure Hunting Magazine, 1983. I'll take a photograph of that. And
I'd love to see, you know, I love stuff like that. There was, I could put an appeal out now. I had an email a long time ago, along my database, it's long been cleared, from a gentleman who, in 1968, he watched a Doctor Who film being shot in this field, and there was these strange Martians that had big medallions on chains around their necks. Anyway, about 2 years ago, this guy was out detecting, and he found one.
Wow.
I mean, he got the Doctor Who photographs from the 60s, and he goes, look, I've got one of these. And then for some reason, he just disappeared. I don't know, bless him, whether he passed away or whatever, but if you're out there, sir, I would still be fascinatingly to publish your article on that. It was one of those things that you just, you know, I love you think of Doctor Who. I can remember that episode in 1968, those things that terrified me, that made me look behind the sofa at them. And now, you know, nearly 60 years old, I can see a bloke who's found one of the medals. I mean, what a timeline. I love stuff like that. I love timelines, you know, where you go back to historical places and maybe make metal detecting finds related to the history or a specific battle. Absolutely, you know, unbeatable stuff. But yeah, anything to do, like Daily Mail. Another thing springs to mind to me. About 2 years ago, had a gentleman wrote to me who got metal detecting permission in the house where he was born. So he went back there and he found all the dinky toys that he'd lost and could remember from the 1950s. I mean, that to me is metal detecting, and it's in a lovely, you know, it's modern stuff. But, you know, if you and I found that dinky toy, it might not be that interesting in it. But imagine the feeling you thought, I haven't seen that for 60 years, you know, and he probably never thought he would do. But
yeah, when my mum passed away last year, I actually got my Cub hat and neckerchief with the leather woggle I had, because I was a senior sixer. And it was great to be able to hand that down to my son, who's at Beavers. So he took it into Beavers for show and tell. And that was only clearing my mum's house out that we found that. Here's another, look at this one, Jules. The restoration of a spoon.
I tell you what, never has the word restoration been so qualified.
The restoration of a spoon. And on the other side, look at the quality. Oh, Luke's changed. Look at the quality of these metal detectors.
Oh, I know, like candy stick handle.
59.95.
I know. But mind you, it was 83. That was pretty much equivalent to a week's wages then, wasn't it? If not more.
I was still in primary school.
We're showing our age difference now.
Yes. Let me see what other questions we've got hanging around anyway. So, of your abundance of finds, what would be your personal favourite?
Whoa. Actually, do you know what? I have quite a few, and they range from bits of Spitfire, bits of Messerschmitt, but the one that most impacted me, and I think people know what this one is. I was travelling with Dave about 3 years ago, and we were talking about a specific coin, number 2 in Spinks. We always talked about it. I had a few mates who found rather poor examples, and half an hour later, I was actually holding the coin, and it's this one. I'll try and show people. It's been all over Facebook. There's probably 3 people left in Britain who've never seen it, but it's my Gala Belgic gold status, the size of a 10 pence. It's probably difficult. No, it's not really very good in the lighting there. Yeah, you can catch the angle there. That really took my breath away. But it's quite funny, really, because it emphasised another angle that we all have our favourite finds. And funny enough, when I found it, I was pleased, but it wasn't in my top 10 things to find. So, I really wanted a big chunky gold Q-Nobelin stater, and it sounds really spoilt, but the big Gala Belgic, it's a considerably valuable coin. It just doesn't float my boat. It does from the aspect of finding it, if you see what I mean. But now I've got it, well, I want a Q-Nobelin one.
So what are the top 10?
Yeah, we all have, I think, our sort of top 10 of what you want to find bucket list thing. And if it's not on your bucket list and you find it, it could be beautiful, but sometimes it just, it's just one of those things. It's a beautiful coin, and I think it's my, it's my 14th, I think, gold coin since I started detecting. But yeah, no, it just doesn't. I love it. Don't get me wrong, I love it, but it doesn't float my boat. But us detectorists never bloody happy, are we?
So, of all the ones of your top 10,
that's it. Always whinging.
Of your top 10 that you want, give me a few ideas in there.
Top 10.
No, you'd have to do 10, but your bucket list.
Option. Yeah, I probably couldn't do 10 because I've just got so many. It's I think probably. This is really weird because it's not in my finds. Are things which aren't metal. This I dug up a Dambuster Lancaster, complete, having some of the families attend it. And some of you may know of Johnny Johnson, who dropped the bomb on the Zorpa Dam in the Dambusters raid. Well, I dug up Johnny's plane in France, along with a gentleman called Simon Parry, who was a good friend of mine. And Johnny attended the dig, and we found part of the plexiglass structure that Johnny looked through at that precise time when he released the bouncing bomb. And that's a small section of it, and Johnny signed it for me.
Wow.
That's in my top 10, definitely, because as far as historical artifacts go in the Second World War, that's a big one for me. And that's not even made of metal, but I could class it as an eyes only. And the other things, forgive me, guys, forgive me.
What's left that you want, Jules? What haven't you found that you'd like to find?
I would like to find a hoard. I did find a hoard 40 years ago now. I was that stupid then. I didn't realise it was a hoard. I just thought Romans lost that amount of coins when they sat down and it poured out of their pockets or whatever they had. And it was a hoard of 25 sestertii and about 30 japondi, all in about a 12-foot area. I just thought, where's the Roman house? Sitting on their sofas or whatever. That's just how they lost coins like that. Didn't realise until I thought about it about 20 years later that it was actually a hoard. As I said earlier on about the bullet that helped shoot down the Zeppelin, that's it. A 303. Just about how many of those do we all find every year, which are just annoying almost? And when you can put one in context, it becomes, and all of these bullets, believe you me, even the annoying ones, we all find out in the fields, they've all got a story to tell. And if you're lucky, just lucky, you might be able to unravel that story. But that one I found in the Zeppelin wreckage, so there was not a lot of unraveling, as was that, which you probably can't say, but there's an Imperial German naval dress button, which is burnt badly, as were, bless them, and I say bless them now because after a century, the politics has all gone. It's just a historical artifact. But those are certainly within my top 10. There was this one as well, which is a lot of my favourites, as you'll see, are aircraft related. That's that young man's navigator's dividers that I was saying about. And you see how bent those are. Lifted. So I look after those now. There was another thing on board the plane that I dug up as well, which was it's this utility penknife, which still largely functions and is extremely sharp. This was made by the German company of Gieschen and Forsthoff, and they're quite prestigious knife manufacturers. They're still around today. And I actually emailed the directors, and a lovely story. The bloke was telling me, he said, "Oh, you know, we had one run over by a steamroller." He said, "That still worked." He said, we were talking about, you know, the tragedies of war. You know, this Junkers 88 was shot down, and all 5 crew on board died. And he was saying, you know, it's such a shame, the young lads, you know, the average age was 23 on board this Junkers 88. And one of those lads owned this penknife. And as I was just about to put the phone down, because I phoned him up one time, he said, "Oh, by the way," he said, "just one thing." He said, "It's been lovely talking to you about metal detecting and all this sort of thing." He said, "But," he said, "is our product still rust-free or rust-free," as it was? And I thought, that is such typical German efficiency, you know, like that. That's all he wanted, just out of curiosity. But I bet you know, marketability. Well, this one crashed, you know, from 5 miles up, and our products are still good after 70 years in the ground, sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, that gives us sort of insight. Other little things as well, like I found with Dave Stuckey, this tiny little Roman pot, you know, and there's only half. It's the biggest bit, and I just love it. We dug it out. They were mole draining, and they went through a Roman rubbish pit. And the farmer was not interested in delaying at all. So Dave and I did a rescue dig. Not the most ideal of situations, but we saved hundreds of bits like this and big bits, which Dave's got. But that's the only one that I took, and I just thought it's a beautiful little pot. You know, probably used for drinking wine or something. But yeah, certainly, again, you know, probably in my top 10 finds. Not doing very well on a metal detecting blog, really. Its top 10 finds are all not made of metal.
No, I honestly thought that we'd end up talking all over the shop. So I actually promoted the show as talking about archaeology and history as well. So people are expecting it. And honestly, Jules, the people who are listening are really enjoying it. I can guarantee that from the comments that are coming up. One of the comments is from Deborah Smith. She says, "I have a question. In your experiences, which is the better coil to have for pasture on a machine like the Simplex? Ultra small or 15-inch? Which would be better for finding hammered coins? I've never found one and need to break my duck."
Right. Now, I had a metal detector. Many of you'll know what brand I use. There's no need to mention it. And I had a standard coil fitted on this. Now, I had some beautiful Georgian manor house pastureland, you know, and the owner of that actually asked me to detect it because his family had been there about 300 years. So I did. Now, I spent 2 years on there, and I found some beautiful Georgian coins, George II, lovely pipe tampers, and things like that. After about 2 years, I started to struggle. Now, of course, it's a law of statistics. There's 30 finds out there. I find 27 of them. It's going to take me more difficult pannage to find the remaining 3. And, of course, every find we make, you remove from the finds from the amount of finds. We all know this. Now, after 2 years, I struggled. After a month, my coin finds rate had gone down from, say, 15 to 20 quality Georgian coins a day to probably 1 in 10 hours. So I went and purchased a much larger coil. Now, in my previous experience, a larger coil meant a mixture of things, greater coverage of area, not always, I will say on some brands, greater depth. But I am going back about 25 years, to be fair. However, with this one, I fitted the larger coil, madam, and my finds rate was absolutely refreshed and renewed. But that worked on like undisturbed pasture land, not on arable land. I obviously, you know, I thought when I fitted this coil on, it did prove to me, probably for the first time ever, that I was getting greater coverage and greater depth. To tell you how great that depth was, with a standard coil, on a moist day, or I will say an extremely dry day, which depended on the soil, can be just as good detecting conditions. I could pull a Vicky penny up at around about 11 inches. With the new coil fitted to my machine, the large coil, I was pulling them up at near on 18 on a very good day. And this, I did measure them to the best of my ability. And it was between 16, 17, 18, maybe 19, but very, very deep. So yes, in my opinion, if you want to winkle out coins from a heavily infested area, you need a small coil. To get your non-ferrous signals out of all those nails, the smaller the coil, the better. If you're on uncontaminated land, i.e. pasture, and you've just run out of fines that your standard coil makes, then go for a bigger coil, most definitely.
Certainly sounds good advice to me. I mean, I'm not one to comment. To be honest, I had my favourite machine that I still beat myself up about getting rid of, and I'm sure I'll go back to it one day, is the Xterra 705. So much joy with that machine. And I put a Nell Tornado coil onto it, or the bigger version. And I don't know, Jules, it just seemed that, I don't know if the machine wasn't communicating as well after I changed it over, because I'd put the old coil back on. Obviously, it's easy enough to do. We all know how to do it properly. But it just, the communication wasn't great, and the machine seemed to lose a large amount of its ability while swapping the coils. And I don't know if it was that, or as you said, statistic probability.
The interesting thing, I've long been a believer of what I call an unwritten science. We don't know the technicalities behind what your experience was, but I do know one thing, and I have witnessed it over 42 years, and it blends with a lot of things. I don't know whether there's some type of science, if you give off an electrical charge when you don't feel very well, and it increases when you're positive and determined. I do not know. I know one thing. When or if you lose confidence in a machine, almost certainly you have to get rid of that machine and replace it with a new model of some variety. When you lose confidence in a machine, for some reason, it never comes back. I've seen my mates, and they think, I don't know who that is. And once they start doubting its ability, their fines rate plummets. Why should that be? I have no idea. There's no technical reason for it, although, well, that could well be. There's more than statistics and common chance here. Lose belief or faith in your product, it's almost like it knows you've lost the fibre, and it can sense it. Therefore, I will not perform well for you if you can't believe it. I don't know. It sounds too silly almost, but it's like when people are ill and say, I wasn't going to come out, but I may as well. No, mate, don't. Stay at home, because you're not going to find. I've seen it so many times. But I've been on fields loaded with Roman coins and beautiful artifacts like that, and you're on there, and within 10 minutes you're getting the coins. You see matey over there, like he feels a bit down or a bit negative or upset for some reason, and he's just walking all the way through those coins without finding one. So I don't know. I can't explain it. It's not my job to explain it. But I would say, if you lose faith in the machine, and it's serious loss of faith, change. Go for a different brand. Try a new model. Something like that. Most people are very positive with a new model because it's like the child's Christmas. I can't wait to get out and use it. And somehow it's just everything's all go. Everything's all positive. But yeah, why that should be, I have no idea.
Yes, absolutely. Well, listen, Jules, there's multiple more questions, but we've been on for an hour and a half.
Okay.
We'd love to get you back. We obviously know now what to do properly. We've got it all sussed. Well, next time you make Lisa hold it better. I think it's Lisa's been the problem tonight.
I'll go up at 4:15.
The whole world had to know that.
For those, obviously, people who want to buy Treasure Hunting magazine and usually buy it from the shops and are unable to, what's the current situation regarding Treasure Hunting magazine?
Yeah.
And what have you?
We obviously do the electronic version for people, and the magazine is available to purchase. All instructions, according to the government advisory laws or legislation at the moment, you'll find on our website. We are obviously still, it's all business as usual, apart from we're all working at home now. But if you go to the website, they'll give you full instructions on how to get your magazine if you don't want to go to the shops.
Brilliant. What was the other question? Let me just pull that one back up again. Yep, so they can't get it from shops. That's fantastic. And obviously, any articles, finds, etc., to go through the magazine, or just for your help, obviously contact you on social media or via the Treasure Hunter Magazine website.
If they just want a natter, mate, that's absolutely fine. If you're feeling a bit low, or all the other things, readers' finds, articles, cool bananas. In this time, if you just want somebody, a shoulder or an ear to pour out something that you might not be able to with your family. I'm not a counsellor or a servicer, but I'm here. Okay.
And I appreciate that, as does everyone else, my friend. So, Julian, it's been an absolute pleasure. Obviously, we'll try and organise something again within the next 12 weeks. I'm sure it's, I hope it's been a pleasure for you tonight to actually talk about things.
Do you know, it's, as I say, I said before, I make no apologies for getting emotional about things like that. It's a beautiful hobby. It's done that to me. It's the greatest privilege, but it's always a real honour to have an outlet for the emotion. I can sit at home on my own, I can say stuff on email and say that this is a new thing for me. Before you, I don't think I'd ever done a blog, let alone something where I could see myself on telly or on the screen. I'm not a technophobe. I come from the age of steam, and treat life pretty much like that. But it's marvellous to be able to know, to feel. It's almost like having, I don't know, however many people are listening tonight, in your living room. It's a really strange sensation, but it's really marvellous because you get this sort of, I don't know, it's just like some big positivity flowing in. So, never been anyone or anybody to kick away anything positive. So for me, it's just an extension of the privilege that I have through my job and through my hobby. Marvellous.
Well, I know, obviously, we won't be able to read all the comments out, but on behalf of all the listeners tonight, Jules, it's been a pleasure for them as well as for us. As I've said to you, as I advertised the show, you are a legend, and everyone who's listening will agree you're a legend. Even though you don't like being called it, you are one. So there.
Wordless. You've actually destroyed the Facebook Gobby legend. I have no words.
And Lisa, thank you so much as well for helping out tonight and to getting access to Jules. Can't thank you enough for that. It's been an absolute pleasure. Now, just before we go, a couple more things. Obviously, for if you are bored, www.archmdmag.com is our website, an education page, so it's a /education. There's lots of things for children, lots of PDF activity packs, links to museum virtual tours, lots of colouring packs, all sorts available for people, as well as YouTube videos from people for children, talking about archaeology as well. So you might enjoy that. As well, obviously, on there is www.archmdmag.tv, which is our own little attempt at doing a Netflix channel, where a lot of people who are in the chat room tonight, Sid Perry, several other people, can't remember it off the top of my head, I do apologise, Dirtfish in this programme, will all be in a file on there, so you'll be able to watch lots of things, Time Team, Digging for Britain, you name it, it's on there, mudlarking, metal detecting, magnet fishing, all sorts. The magazines themselves, Luke will be emailing me over the PDF. So the PDF page you've just seen at the top, that'll be going up this week. That'll be all of last year's PDFs for the printed versions of the magazine, which obviously are all free to read anyway. Additionally, in, I think, 2 weeks' time, when we were supposed to be launching at Spring Detectival, which was sadly postponed, we'll be putting out our PDF of our first magazine for this year. So there's lots to find on there. As I said, we've also got audiobooks coming over the next couple of days on the podcast page itself. So all this information will be available via the social media sources, as you'll see here somewhere. There, here. So again, Jules, it's been an absolute pleasure. We can't thank you enough.
Cheers, Dave. Cheers, everybody.
Take care, my friend, and thank you to Luke. Oh, one last thing as well. I do apologise. People listening, please look out for Stephen Gray's Just Giving campaign. Sadly, Stephen Gray's wife is very poorly, and they're doing a Just Giving campaign at the moment to raise monies for, obviously, medical attention and such like. So please look that up. I know it's on the metal. In fact, I've shared it tonight on the big metal detecting radio and TV page. So please have a look out for that. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you to all the listeners, and thank you to Luke, Jules, and to Lisa. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.